And well, welcome. Here we are on our third discussion with DC villages. And today I've got three villages that we're going to be talking to, and that's the Cleveland and Woodley Park Village, the Dupont Circle Village, and the Waterfront Village. And so before we dive into what each of those villages, the details of each of those villages, let's meet some of the people that we're going to be talking with. And I'm going to start with Ava. Ava, tell us a little bit about yourself and what village you represent.
Sure. Thank you, Steve, for arranging this third session. My name is Ava Lucero. I am the executive director of the Dupont Circle Village, a role that I have been in since 2015. Dupont Circle Village is one of the older villages in the district. We're behind Palisades and Capitol Hill. We were founded in 2008, and we serve the adults in wards 1 and 2 in the neighborhoods of Adams Morgan, Dupont Circle, and Kalorama.
Great, excellent. Well, we'll be coming back to you here shortly. And below you on my screen, I've got Frank Finnemore. Frank, tell us a little bit about your role and what village you represent.
Great. I'm the executive director of the Cleveland and Woodley Park Village. I'm Frank Finnemore, and I started with the village just before the pandemic hit. So it's been kind of baptism by fire. My background is in organization development, and I like to say that the village job is something that I think I've been preparing for all my life. I just didn't really know it. I come to the field of aging from caring for family members and others with dementia. And so I have a real passion for older adults. And our village is really helping to have older residents of Cleveland and Woodley Park, which extends beyond the National Cathedral West, really thrive in community. And we do a number of different things in order to make that happen. But basically, we're creating opportunities for people to be engaged, and then we provide support for those that need an extra helping hand from a neighbor in order to remain living in our community.
I love it. All right. And now below Frank, we've got Sandy Rubin. Sandy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I too am with Cleveland and Woodley Park Village. I'm co-chair of the board, and I am a volunteer and serve on some committees. I think Frank really summarized what our village is. And the thing I love most about the village is watching the friendships and the connections that have formed. And it's just really heartwarming. And I know it will be there for me when I need them.
Great, excellent. And then to Sandy's right, I've got Lynn Bechtel. Lynn.
Yes, thanks again, Steve, for giving us this opportunity to talk about the villages. You know, I think as one of the smaller villages in a growing area, it's often interesting to see that new dynamic between folks who have been with the village and have been in the neighborhood for 20, 30 years, then interacting with folks who are moving into the new condominium buildings and really just getting their feet wet in the area and seeing how quickly the interaction between the two groups can help the new people sort of merge and become comfortable in their new neighborhoods.
And your village is the DC Waterfront.
DC Waterfront, right? So we cover really the three communities that are in the southern waterfront of DC, which is all of Southwest DC, which includes the Wharf and Buzzards Point. And then just across South Capitol Street, we have the Navy Yard neighborhood that's also blossoming on the riverfront.
Wow, that's a really fast-growing area of the city. So that's pretty interesting. So, and are you the executive director?
I am. I'm the executive director of Waterfront Village.
Great, excellent. And last but not least, we've got Ann McFerrin. Ann,
Thank you, Steve. I am president of Dupont Circle Village, and this is my second year in that office. So, of course, like many of the rest of us, we've been doing a lot of work with the pandemic. I come to this from a medical and nursing background, which is a little bit different than some of the other members that are here.
Excellent. All right, well, good. So we got to meet each of you. Now what I'd love to do is just sort of dive into anecdotal stories or different ways that your village is supporting the community, helping your members, helping your volunteers, you know, what have you. And so this is sort of open season. You guys can just sort of share your ideas, but then feel free to kind of comment on each other's and sort of if somebody's talking about something, you can jump in and sort of say, oh, and that's something that we do too. So I'll just start in the same order that we did the introduction. So I'll start with Ava, and if you want to just kind of share with us some insights on Dupont Circle Village, and we'll
Sure.
go from there.
Thank you. Actually, today, one of the reasons I have asked Ann McFerrin to join me is because as board president, but before she was board president, she was a very active member of the board and a member of some of our key health and wellness committees. But more importantly, she's been instrumental in taking DC's service model to a whole other level. She was always advocating for services that would be necessary and be in place as our membership got older and became more frail. So whether it be our care groups, our care group platform, our vaccination clinics, or our healthcare navigator RN position, Anne's medical background and expertise are all over these programs. And I would
Well,
love for her to share about that.
No, I would, that would be great. And actually, you just sort of threw out, I think, 3 unique programs that I'd love more, that I think everybody would like more detail on. So whether it's you or Ann that talks about that and the initiative, that would be great.
Sure.
So
Anne,
I could pick up on that right now if you'd like. Let's start with the vaccine program because it became clear. Well, first of all, we started a few years ago a flu vaccination program. So every fall we have flu shots available for people at our office, and that has been a very successful program. Not only providing flu vaccine for people, but we do blood pressure checks. We teach people how to use the emergency program on their phone. So it was logical that we would try to do the same thing with COVID when that program started. Well, after a great deal of work on a couple of our parts, it was clear that we were not going to have a clinic in our office. So we set up a strategy to get all of our members vaccinated, and we had everyone vaccinated by February 15th. We have 2 people who chose not to be vaccinated, but everyone else in our village had vaccine in their arm, their second dose, by the 15th of February, which really pleased us a lot. And we went on and offered help to other villages. And overall, we helped about 75 people in our village, maybe 80 people. Others were able to get the vaccine on their own. But altogether, we got vaccines for over 300 people before they became easily available. So we're very proud of that program. The thing that has been clearer for us over the last couple of years is that we have people who are really run into crises, mostly healthcare crises. where they have an emergency hospitalization or an emergency health problem or a chronic problem where they are just not getting a lot of the care that they need. So we have an advocacy program where, in fact, we work with the member to help them figure out how to get the care they need. And that may include going with them to physicians or other clinical services, but we continue to work with our members until they get the health care that they need. And then that triggered a need to keep track of what was going on. So we have developed a platform called the Care Group Platform, so that anyone of our members who needs help has a care group formed around them that may include our social worker and our healthcare navigator as professionals, and then volunteers work with them, and collectively we take care of those folks until they are in a better spot. And all of that activity is recorded on our database, so everyone knows what's going on with that member without having emails flying all over that are public. So those are the 3 programs that we've been really working on the last year. I would like to say our mental health programs are couched in quite another way, like parties. And the one that we're the most proud of right now, well, I don't know if we're most proud of, but I'm proud of, was our holiday program, where we actually did holiday bags with food and hot chocolate and little gifts, and had members sign up. And we had 125 people at our Zoom holiday party, each one of them with gifts in hand, with the music that they got to sing. And that kind of boost when you're lonely, we found to be really valuable.
I love the fact that you referred to that as a mental health program, because if you label it anything mental health, all of a sudden nobody wants to participate in it. And
Right.
there's just like aging, there's a stigma around that terminology, but obviously this is a great opportunity to check in with people, make them feel better, and let them know that if they've got a group of people they can talk to if they need to talk to somebody. So that's great.
Yeah, and the fact that 50% of our village showed up two
Yeah.
days before Christmas was pretty amazing.
That's great. Okay, so I will sort of hand this off to the other villages, but I don't know if before you, and I'll say to the other 2 villages, you can sort of expand on what Dupont Circle was talking about, if there's something there that you'd like to sort of expand on and say, hey, we do something similar, but we do it this way, or just share some of the unique programs or unique benefits that each of your villages are doing. So Frank, I don't know if you want to go next.
Sure. So what I think is really great about what we're trying to do with Cleveland and Woodley Park Village is to reduce the stigma that many older adults feel in accessing services. In many cases, we're not the only people that they could go to in order to get their needs met. And yet they won't go to anyone else, because when they come to the village, they feel as if, and we talk about the fact that it's a neighbor helping them. And so that stigma is reduced. And the great thing is that it's a friendly visit. So even if we're providing things like rides, which is so important to and from medical appointments or the grocery store or the bank or errands or whatnot, it's an opportunity to reduce the social isolation of that member. And so our model is slightly different in that we really promote many of the services so that our members request those services. So we have probably, I think this year, likely to be offering 1,200 services, individual acts of kindness, I like to call them, to our members. And some of them, are really quite interesting for us. We developed a meals program during the pandemic where we had a group of families come together and say, how can we support some of our older residents? And that actually continued. It started off with, the kids wanting to bake chocolate chip cookies when they weren't in school, but now we provide 7 meals or so per week for a small handful of people. But
Wow.
those people could, perhaps purchase those meals elsewhere, but culturally, that's not something that they've done before. And so they won't accept a commercially produced meal, but they will accept it from a volunteer. And so I'm really happy because I think that we're addressing some food insecurity, which in Ward 3 of DC, many times people don't think we have people that are food insecure, and we do. But also for some of the people that we provide the food for, they no longer feel comfortable cooking, and yet they don't want to order. And
we don't feel comfortable letting them go to the stove.
right, exactly.
Good point.
And so, I think it's really a great service that we provide just as neighbors. Some of the other things that we've adopted recently, which we borrowed one from the idea from Dupont Circle, and we're very pleased with this, offering community service clinics, if you will. We did a flu shot clinic outdoors last year when people were afraid to go indoors, even with masks. So we were able to do that with the giant food through the contacts that Ava provided to me. And more recently, we're able to offer just community events where we provide postcards to all the members 60 and over in our neighborhoods, and let them know that we're going to have a free concert, a jazz concert, or a musical sing-along concert or something on a Saturday afternoon outside on the lawn of a private school. And they're free to come. And it's a great way for people who may not get out much to get out and interact with peers of their own age. So those are some of the things that I think I'm most proud of. And then the check-in calls. Last year, we provided over 2,300 check-in calls, which were particularly important during the pandemic. But it's also a way of getting more information from people about what they do need so that we can be there to support them. And sometimes people will tell someone who calls them, oh, I'm running a little low on groceries, whereby they would never tell us that if we weren't calling them. They would never be proactive. So it's really sort of reaching in a different way and finding out what they need and trying to meet those needs.
And something that you said, Frank, they'll allow a volunteer to give them a meal. And I don't think they see that person as a volunteer, but as a friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the trust that is built is definitely another advantage of being a member of a village and getting to know someone, because will see them as a friend, because it's been, that trust has been built by seeing them around and stuff.
Yeah, there is, what's interesting is the sort of the labels that we put on our members and volunteers. And I was having a discussion with the village the other day, and we were pondering, what if there was no distinction? It's just everybody's a member and we all help each other out, so that you're not sort of like identifying yourself as a care recipient or a volunteer, because we're all benefiting by helping each other. So it's an interesting.
And the families are benefiting. Last week, one of our members invited me out to dinner with her and her daughter, son-in-law, and twin granddaughters. And after dinner, the daughter came up to me and she hugged me and she thanked me so much for being a friend and to helping her mother. And this mother is not isolated. She has a full-time live-in companion, I would call it, because he's not really a caregiver. She has a neighborhood, a very strong neighborhood where she knows everybody on the block. And she gets out and walks every day. But even so, it was very important to the daughter that we as the village were there.
That's great. Let's see, I think we had Carol Quinn joining us. Carol, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. No worries. We've just been going around and just talking about our individual villages, but I want to make sure that I identify you. Tell us a little, your name is Carol Quinn and you're with the DC Waterfront Village, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes,
And your
well,
role. Yep.
currently I'm the president of the board of the Waterfront Village, and I know Lynn's on this call, so he's representing us well. I've been board president just since the beginning of this year, but I have been involved in the board and the village since its inception, really, in 2016. I'm very committed to the village concept. I think aging in place is the way we need to go. And I think that everything that this group is doing to try to integrate the villages more tightly with other kinds of services for the elderly in the DC area is extremely important.
Great. Okay, so let's see. And actually, that's a great transition. So Len and Carol, if you'd like, you both would like to sort of comment on some of the interesting aspects to the DC Waterfront Village and programs that you may be involved with and how your village supports the community.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to look across all of the 13 villages. You know, some are fairly new, some have been around for a while, and it's important to note how villages evolve too. You know, as time goes on and different issues impact the older adults in the district, the villages also change with that. And Frank, I think, named a couple of things that were different with the pandemic. One of the other things is the whole use of technology. You know, I think we used technology for some emailing before the pandemic, but then suddenly we could no longer get together, and our models were bringing folks together. And with the pandemic, it was, well, how do you do that? And we pivoted to using technology in a way that I don't think any of us would have anticipated a year ago. And yet I think all of us anticipate employing those same technologies as we move forward as an alternative for those people who may not always be as mobile or available to attend events in person. They can still have an option to do so from their living room or their dining room now. So we spent a lot of time early on in the pandemic teaching folks how to use Zoom, getting folks used to streaming other events. And, you know, I think we built a skill set among older adults in the district that just wasn't there before. And it's opened many doors. You know, right now I have lots of folks telling me about all the things that they're seeing, you know, elsewhere that I should include in our newsletter. And sometimes it's almost overwhelming because folks want to share so much content. And I can see, you know, content dropping off a little bit when we are fully, when the pandemic fully is in our rearview mirror. But I think there's always going to be some of our members who are going to continue to want that digital content. And, you know, I'm glad that the villages saw the opportunity there. And, you know, we were able to learn on our own how to deliver that content. So, you know, that's just one of the ways that we've evolved as a result of the pandemic.
I'd like to piggyback on that. We do get help from the Department of Aging, and one of the things that they did this year was to provide iPads for people who were not otherwise connected because of technical or financial reasons, mostly financial. And that has been a big boost too. So we have worked with other groups in order to enhance that electronic connection in the last year. And you're right, Lynn, it's not going to go away, I don't think, ever.
Yeah, one of the women who we were actually given 8 iPads that were very easy to give out in our village. There were 8 people that really wanted to be online and were unable to. And one of the women who receives one has been so active with the computer classes that every time I call her, she's on a computer class. She is just teaching herself. And like you say, Lynn, she always tells me about programs that I should be advertising because she's taking them now and she thinks other villagers would love to see them. It's great how active she has become because of this great program by that DASL funded.
One other thing that I would add that DACL, our funder, has provided for is, at least in our village, subsidized memberships, either partial or fully subsidized membership, so that we can ensure that all of the great services that we're talking about, the great opportunities, are available to anyone, regardless of their financial needs. And I think that's really, really important. And I congratulate the district for supporting those types of ways.
And about 20% of our village.
We have 52 members are in our open village category. And I do thank DASL all the time because of that, definitely.
Yeah, this is great. Let's see. Now I'll just kind of like, that was a good overview. We got to know everybody. We got to hear some of the unique insights about each of the villages. I'll sort of kind of close with just an open discussion. If there's anything about your village or the DC Village Consortium that you'd want the public to know, throw it out there, and then we can wrap things up.
Well, I think that villages have become more visible since I've been involved. Years ago, I would say, oh, I volunteer with the village. And people would say, duh. Now people know what it is. And I think that our outreach from all of the villages has really sparked that interest. And it's easier to recruit members and volunteers to work with us. And one of our very popular activities is in combination with the Cleveland Park Library and what was the Cleveland Park Business Association, and now is it District Bridges or?
They're the Main Street program.
The Main Street program. We have a monthly Tuesday talk at the library, which of course now is on Zoom, but and that has given the community more awareness of the village movement.
Well, I think we all would say that we would welcome more members. And if anyone is interested, they should definitely contact us and see if we are a right fit for what they are interested in. And that includes people who are emerging into the retirement or older age group, as well as those who have kind of hit the mark, as well as individuals who would like to share their skills. So we would be very interested in talking with you. And I think I can speak for all of us on that one.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I would add to that people can go to dcvillages.org and look at our interactive map. You can put in your address and find out if you're in a village. And if you're not, many of us allow members outside of our village boundaries where there aren't. We have a member who is on the other side of town and she just likes us. So she picked us and we're happy to have her. There are other villages, I'm sure, that also do that. And so dcvillages.org is a great place to start.
The other thing I'd like to say is that if there's anyone out there that's looking at the villages and thinking, well, I'm not quite there yet, I don't need any help. I'd say, that's great that you don't need any help, but you could also either help others or just come to our events for the friendships. I have one member who is in that situation. She's a great volunteer. And she says, I look at my membership as being, I don't need any help, but I like knowing that I have the village to count on in case I ever do. I look at it as help insurance.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one of the ways that Dupont Circle Village, and I'm sure other villages do as well, is the way we dispel those attitudes is 3 or 4 times a year we have a recruitment kind of happy hour meal. And we have a whole list of prospects and we invite them and we bring along not only myself and our membership chair and probably the president, but we bring members and volunteers who can talk to them. And they dispel a lot of these ideas that people have of this, the village. And it's been very successful because they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Or I can't believe how many programs you have. Oh, I didn't know you had a social worker, things like that. It's a really good way of dispelling a lot of the attitudes about, they used to call in the village movement, they used to call it not ready yet. There was a category called that.
Well, my partner and I thought we were joining for health insurance, but we found that we had all of a sudden a whole new set of friends that we never would otherwise have had. And the most interesting people, it's just been a whole lot of fun. And that was not anticipated when we joined. I also had retired not too many years before we joined. And I realized that many people, that my social life had evolved a lot around my career. And there were a lot of, you go out to dinner with your colleagues or blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden that group disappears. And the village members really filled that void that I wasn't even aware I had.
I love it.
I'll close with one personal story in that I came to the village actually because of my mother. I took my mother to her geriatrician. My mother is 90, lives with me. And frankly, all of my mother's friends were gone. She's the last one. And, I wanted her to be more social and he suggested contacting the village. And frankly, I, encouraged my mother and maybe signed her up myself as a way of encouraging her. But, today, she sees people from her stretching class on Zoom that see her at in-person events at our home. And, she has other friends there. So sometimes it's not just the individual that signs themselves up. Sometimes they need adult children to give them a little prompting or suggestion.
Actually, we one of the efforts we did for recruitment is we sent letters to all of the doctors and nurses because they are a good resource. And we actually recently a member, she became a member because the social worker at Sibley recommended the villages. And these are the people we need to contact that, she needed some help. And she said, and so the call was great. I said, how did you hear about it? She goes, the social worker at Sibley. So yeah, getting that word out to the professionals is key too, to really building our brand and our memberships.
I love it. This is great. I really feel like I'm the recipient of getting to talk to so many of you and hear these great stories. And I've said since back in, the Beacon Hill days and the early stages of Capitol Hill Village, there's no better grassroots movement for aging in place than the villages. Yeah. And it's so authentic because it's actually people living in the actual neighborhoods. It's not a private service that's sort of saying, here, buy this. It's the community coming together. So this is great. So I will save this recording and add it to the list. You guys can, I'll send out a link. And then we've got one more round of these interviews, and then I'll put together all the transcripts, and we'll get to start writing the article. And then I've got a couple of other interesting things that I'm gonna work on as well.
Great,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
Steve.
Very much.
Great, great.
Thanks,
Hey,
Dave.
guys.
Thanks
Thanks.
so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.